hate the way it just cuts off like that. How rude.
So rude.
Well, yeah. Well, welcome to another Workshop Wednesday, casual conversations for serious workflows, brought to you by schoolbookkeeping.com, where you can become the best bookkeeper you can be. And I realized that the red underlay underneath is bleeding out because of the background. Anyway, all right. Always a never ending saga here of at School of Bookkeeping on the workshop.
Yeah, I did
Uh,
notice that you did change the background.
yeah, I noticed that when I was doing like the editing and we had like this video background playing, anytime that I made a cut, then of course it jumped, right? So I figured I'd just do something static, so it's always going to be the same when I do my editing. Uh, but
Oh,
but you have been a worldly traveler for the past couple of weeks, and literally just came back in from last night. Is that right?
yep. Well, as you know, we were in Orlando for a week 2 weeks ago for Scaling New Heights. And then when we came back, I quickly went back to Orlando for another week for my daughter's dance competition. And we did go to Disney one day, which was really fun.
Yay! Always good to have Disney on the agenda when you're in there.
Yes.
Something magical, right?
Yeah, it was really fun, but it's a lot. It's always nice to come home.
So to juxtapose with the magic of Disney, we're going to be talking about multi-currency today.
Yes. Which I know you've done some deep diving and I know you've found out a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely
So
excited to hear.
next week, and I'm really annoyed by the freaking cowlick that I have. Next week we're going to be unpacking multi-currency with PayPal. So I wanted to take this week to kind of just talk about the multi-currency feature and functionality, kind of lay down what the feature is really defined, or what it should do, and what its fundamental um, what its fundamentals are about it, and
And you
and so
mean
that we
in
can
QuickBooks Online, yes?
in QuickBooks Online, and in QuickBooks Desktop it kind of functions the same way, but there's a little bit of nuances associated with that as far as desktop versus online, but the concept is the same.
Yes.
And really what it boils down to, and I'm going to share my screen here. So I have this article, and I'm going to share that in the comments about, because it's actually a really nice article provided by Intuit about setting up and using multi-currency in QuickBooks Online. This is one of those features, though, that you want to make sure you know what you're getting into before you turn it on, because it's a here's a day analogy. This is going into a parking garage and going over that tire strip, right? So, you know, you cannot back up and change this if you've turned it on. And as
Yes,
long
and
as
that's
you
actually what Allison said next last week when we were talking about it. Once you turn it on, it's on.
Yeah, you can't turn it off. You would have to essentially go to a restore point, which you would need to have a backup service running and
Mhm.
turned on when you turn on this feature. So if you're
Like
using QuickBooks
Rewind
on,
or something like that. You
yeah,
can back it
yes,
up to a certain
yep.
date.
If you're using Rewind, that's an online backup restore point function. Or if you're in QuickBooks Online Advanced and you've got the included online backup, you can use that. But this is one of those things that if you turn it on and you realize, oh, that was a horrible mistake, I'm going to have to go back to that point in time to do that, unless you have that backup enabled, and there is a restore point prior to you turning on this feature and function, then you're SOL. I think is the the technical term, or you got to start over. You're gonna have to start over, or do it's decision time at that point. What are we gonna do with that, right? So wanted to kind of talk, that's the first thing, right? It's one of those features that you can't turn off once you've turned it on, because it fundamentally changes some of the things inside of your QuickBooks company file. Even desktop is that way.
Oh, okay. Because I was just going to ask you, and maybe you're going to get into this later, but what I was going to ask you is, okay, fine, it's turned on in perpetuity, but what if I'm not using any of the form transactions that, in other words, what if I'm not
Yeah,
inputting a invoice in euro and everything is just in US dollars, so I'm not
yeah,
ever going to use it, even though it's
exactly.
turned on? What harm will it do?
Yeah, I mean, as long as your home currency is US dollars, which you can change, right? You can change
Mhm.
what the US what your home currency is. As long as your home currency is in US dollars, there's no harm in having it
Okay,
turned on, right? It's just it's an appendix, right? Having the currency list and having transactions that are potentially able to be in different foreign currencies is there, and
right,
you'll get a few extra accounts on your chart of accounts in those currencies if you ever had a transaction in those foreign currencies. So it's not like the end of the world if you realized, oh, I turned it on and I can't
right.
turn it off. It's more of just it's kind of like any other feature that might be available. Like if you're not using classes and you're in Plus, right? There's no harm in turning on
Right.
classes. It's just going to have that little class column or class field associated with those transactions that you may never need to use. Right?
Yes, and I'm thinking, let's say you do have it turned on indefinitely and your home currency is in US dollar, but let's say you're getting some type of foreign currency payouts from,
Yeah.
Stripe or PayPal or something like that, in which you have that turned on to accept foreign currency, and then maybe you forget, and then it comes in and it's
Yeah.
converting, and then you might be confused. So it's just, yeah, you're right. It's like good to know that once it's turned on, it's always turned on. You got to kind of remember that.
Yeah. Now, what I have seen with people who have turned on multi-currency, um, and in some cases, and this was more of a specific use case for desktop. Um, when there may be applications that synchronize with QuickBooks that don't like that feature turned on, right? So
Mm,
in this particular case, gentleman had turned on multi-currency because he does interact with foreign countries, and
yes.
they wanted, for sending an invoice, they wanted to see it in euros. Well, okay, well,
Yep.
you need multi-currency turned on in order to do that. He found out that he didn't necessarily have to do that, so he wanted to turn it off. Okay, we can't turn it off. um, but then he wanted to use the bill pay function inside of QuickBooks Desktop, which is powered by Melio. Melio said, "No, I can't do that because you've got multi-currency turned on." So then we had that discussion of, okay, well, how do we work with that now that you've gone past that threshold, right?
Wait a minute, but
So
is Melio still powering the bill pay in QuickBooks Desktop? Because it's not in online.
it right, it is still in order to schedule a payment in QuickBooks Desktop, it's still being
Oh,
powered
it's
by,
still Melio. Okay.
yeah. They're the engine behind
Yeah.
the bill pay function. Um, but yeah, I mean, so like in here in this article here, it's like if you connect QuickBooks Commerce with QuickBooks Online, multi-currency won't work. I'm not sure.
Oh,
Yeah, so there's some nuances to it, right?
yeah.
So if you turn on multi-currency and your home currency is not US dollars, that's going to affect payroll, right? So
Yeah.
so if obviously, or QuickBooks payments or other services that are reliant on the US dollar or the US market region, and if you turn things on and put it in a different currency, then that may cause some challenges. So those are just some of the warnings. I guess it's the easiest thing to say about multi-currency in general. But also it's not this says it's not available in Simple Start, but I'm not sure if that's actually true or not. And I'm not going to go into a Simple Start company just to check it. I may do that
Well, it
afterwards.
was updated 1 week ago, so I
Yeah.
bet you that is, unless this is an older article, or if I'm not
Or if
entirely
that
sure.
wasn't updated. I don't know.
Yeah, that might not have been updated. But can
So
you give an example of like what I would do if I've turned on
yeah,
multi-currency? Like I know,
right,
but I don't think I can explain it as well as you. So like I
right.
actually I have a couple clients that are do a lot of business in Germany. They're German
Hmm.
and they travel back and forth all year round. So they have multi-currency on because
Hmm.
they need it. So I'll let you
Yeah.
give some examples.
So here is where you determine, hey, I want to do this. Great. This is where you would go inside of QuickBooks Online to turn it on. I already have this turned on in my demo company as well. So as you know, I can't change it. Right. So my home currency is the US dollar, and I do have it turned on. And the only thing I can do here is manage the currencies, which is the ability to turn on and make active various foreign currencies. And what QuickBooks then does is, I'm going to go back to this article here. Um, the, the 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 fundamental, just kind of take a step back here. The fundamental reason of turning on multi-currency is that use case that you mentioned there. If you are in and you deal with uh, foreign entities, right? So, say you're close to the Canadian border and you do a lot of, maybe you have some customers in Canada, and maybe have some suppliers that are in the Canadian dollar, right? It makes sense to them to send. It makes sense to those individuals to see it in their own home currency, which in that case would be Canadian dollars, right? So when you send an invoice or you receive a bill, uh, they're gonna send and receive those documents in their foreign currency, and so you want to see that in QuickBooks in their language, so to speak, in that case, their currency. And then what QuickBooks does is it downloads the exchange rates on the days that those things happen, and then converts that currency into the US dollar, right? So you'll be able to see what your financial picture is, based off of these transactions happening in different currencies, right?
Yeah, that's so
And so,
cool. So, like, if you have entered bills that you've received in euro, and then you enter them that way, like if I run an AP aging, then it's going to
mhm,
convert it to US dollar of the exchange
right,
rate of the day I entered that bill, right?
right. And there is a nuance here when you're dealing with accounts payable, accounts receivable transactions. So you say you send your customer in Canada an invoice today. 2 weeks later, they pay it, right? So now there's a passage of time between the two times, the two events. And guess what? The currency exchange rate could change
Yep.
between that
It
time period.
probably
So,
has changed.
and it probably has and probably will, especially the longer period of time that occurs there. So the main reason to even turn on multi-currency is to account for the differences in the foreign exchange rate from the time that you send something to the time that you've received a payment. So that could be a bill you're paying, or an invoice that the customer is paying. And someone didn't turn off their do not
I
disturb.
did. But you know what? It's my daughter. She texts me all day long.
Oh, and she's
And
on
I
bypass.
do have it on do not disturb, but she must say notify anyway, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Or you put her on emergency bypass just in case, because we
well,
do that with our
I don't
kids.
know I don't know anything beyond that. So
Gotcha. All right. So the good news is with QuickBooks Online, you don't have to worry about the exchange rates, right? Because here the foreign currency values are automatically updated in QuickBooks Online every 4 hours. So
Oh, love that. I
so
thought it was every day.
that's
I didn't realize it was every 4 hours.
I thought it was every day too until I read this article. So look, we all learned
Very
something new
cool.
today.
Thanks,
So
QuickBooks.
yeah, and that's something that is a difference between the desktop multi-currency and QuickBooks Online, because it's already online. It's already able to kind of scrape and pull in those exchange rates so it's always the most current. Now, where's it getting it from? It's getting it from this IHS Market,
Mm,
which is a company that will provide these exchange rates.
that's good.
That may or may not be the exchange rate that whatever whatever they're paying, or
Yeah.
especially as we start to unpack the multi-currency and PayPal next week, that may or may not be the exchange rate that was used by them,
Yeah,
right?
because maybe they're using Bill.com or something and they're sending it automatically through that, and Bill.com is using some other, might be
Yeah,
off by like a penny or something like that.
right. So when you turn it on, right? So a couple things are going to happen. You're going to have this new list of exchange rates, right? And you can revalue the currency, which in this case, this is the current exchange rate as of between the last 4 hours of the Canadian dollar
Mhm.
and the euro. But if you needed to revalue the currency, you could do that, right? You could
Hmm.
specify um,
Interesting.
a transaction, but I don't have any in here. I could revalue it based off of the Canadian dollar here. But
Yeah.
what's going to happen when you're going to see transactions? Every transaction now is going to have. Let's just throw something in here. And do I have where? Oh, this is an invoice. So let's not work with new invoices yet. Let's do a bill. And let's choose a vendor that's Canadian. Do I have one? I'm going to have to create one. So it's our Canadian vendor. You're going to specify somewhere. Where are they now? Going to be down. Where'd it go?
Are you looking for address?
No, I'm looking for the dollar. Oh, there it is. It's up at the top. Okay. How dare they put that front and center on me? That's where you're going to be specifying the currency that vendor or customer is going to be utilizing. So as soon as I choose that, now I get this Canadian dollar to US dollar exchange rate based off of the fact that I have now created a customer or vendor in that foreign currency. So it's just pulling in this dollar amount, or this exchange rate directly from that download, right? That may
Yeah,
or may not
and I'm
be
blind, and it looks like it's 74 cents on the dollar, which means we need to go on vacation in Canada.
exactly. Now, let's say that this particular exchange rate was not the exchange rate that was used by the outside system that's feeding into QuickBooks. You can go in and just change this exchange rate to match what was actually occurred, right? So let's just put in a we ate something, right? Now everything that you're putting in here is in Canadian dollar reference, but because you have now activated the multi-currency, uh, you're going to see your reports in both the foreign currency and the home currency, right? So this is a bill that I would be sending them for we bought a meal reimbursement or something, right? So it was 100 Canadian dollars, and they'll be able to see it in their own home currency of Canadian dollars. And when they pay it, they will pay 100 Canadian dollars, and that's going to potentially change the exchange rate. Could potentially change from the time that you send this bill to the time that you receive the bill. or receive the payment. And so now if we go ahead and we look at, let me go back to that bill now. And I'm going to look at the transaction journal because we want to see all the debits and credits.
I love looking at the transaction journal.
All right. Oh, and of course it's in the new modern view, so we need to see our columns. All right. So more columns. I'm going to search for foreign.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the foreign exchange gain or loss.
Let's see here. Where do we hide it here? So it's under transaction. There we go. Foreign amount, foreign debit, foreign credit, and we've got additional columns that we can add in here. So here we can see the debits and credits on the reporting side is $73.40, right? So that's the US dollar conversion. And you can add additional columns to show what the foreign amount actually was in both the debit and credit side of things. So you can add these additional columns on reports. So if you needed to see what is it in my home currency and what is it in the foreign currency, you can. Right.
And basically, this is saying even though the bill was 100 Canadian dollars, it only debited your account 73.40.
Right.
That's the value of Canadian dollars in US.
So all of your reports are going to show in your home currency.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
As you have all of these transactions in a foreign currency, all the reports are going to be based off of that exchange rate on that particular day. What was it in US dollars or whatever your home currency happens to be? Assuming you're using the US region, you're going to be using US dollars as the case may be. Now, what's going to happen here is they're going to wait some time to pay this bill, and that exchange rate is going to change.
Yep.
There is a gain or loss to the business based on that passage of time and the exchange rate fluctuating during that time period. That is the original purpose of what this feature would do, is allow you to calculate or allow QuickBooks to automatically calculate the realized gain or loss or the unrealized gain or loss due to the change in foreign currency.
You don't like squishing words together, Dan. I don't know why you're doing that.
Yeah, that's right. That's not a truncated word that fly too well. The foreign currency exchange rate from the passage of time between those two events. So,
oh my gosh, I love it when things get complicated like that. Okay, so let me ask you, what would happen if, let's just say hypothetically, the Canadian dollar, let's just say the US dollar tanked and the Canadian dollar went up in value, even though it never would because there's all messed up in front of that. But let's just say the value and let's just say the foreign exchange rate went from 73.40 up to 80 or something like that.
Yeah, so let's do that. Let's change the date of this and see what happens, right? So this was 0.7333. So let's put it back a couple months and see if the exchange rate actually did fluctuate, and then that will give us a little bit more guidance here. Let's put it to March 1st. As soon as I tab out, boom, it did change. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. It's not very much, though. It wasn't the great difference that I was hoping for.
Yeah. We'd probably have to go back years or
Darn
whatnot.
it, Canada, you're too stable.
But this should actually be reflective now on our profit and loss. So if I go to run a profit and loss now, let's go do that. Oh, I hate when it does that.
I know.
The custom report builder shows up just as I'm about to click on something. All right, so let's say this year. this year.
I always scroll down to the very bottom of that too, and I forgot that the thises are on the very top.
Yeah, this year. Where's this calendar year? There we go.
You have too many options in there.
Yeah. So let's see why. Okay, so why
Well,
is it
because you
not?
didn't actually pay the bill. All you did
Oh,
was change the bill
and
date.
and I got burnt on the cash.
Oh yeah, whoopsie.
It's accrual.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. So my unrealized gain or loss, because it's so inconsequential,
Yeah.
is $0, right? So there's not a huge amount, but this will
Yeah,
now
if
show
you
up.
would have, yeah, you're right. If you would have got, let's say you did it like on January 1st or something,
Mhm.
it would have been maybe a difference of,
Or let's just go ahead and be explicit and say we're going to make up our own exchange foreign currency exchange, or we want to match what was actually used by the outside system. Let's just say it's 50 cents on the dollar,
yeah.
and it's saying, "Hey, don't do that," because you've exchanged a rate that for Friday, March 1st. Would you like to do it on this transaction or for all new transactions dated that date? So we can say we can be explicit with regards to that. So that leads into kind of one of the things that we're going to be talking about next week is that if you have a system that is using a different exchange rate than what is showing up in QuickBooks, you can make these things match and jive, right? So we're just going to change that to 50 cents on the dollar. Now we really need to go to to Canada,
Yeah.
and then we'll go back to
Basically
our profit and
free.
loss and run the report. Oh, damn it. It's still nothing.
Yeah, because I think you have to pay the bill.
Well, then that would actually change from unrealized gains to realized gains or
Oh
loss.
yeah, you're right. It becomes realized. So why isn't it showing an actual unrealized gain or loss?
If we drill in here,
Oh, maybe it will on the AP aging.
let's see here. What do we got here? Is our,
Yes,
yeah, it's
that's
just
one of
not,
those
it's
things where it works in my head, but I'm not entirely sure how it works in QuickBooks.
right. So yeah, it's not recognized in here just yet, but I would have expected it to, but on such short surprise notice, I am not thinking this through properly.
Yeah, because
But
my thought is it I don't know about unrealized gain or loss, but I know that when the actual payment is
mhm,
made, the payment is going to be made in today's
yeah,
exchange
so
rate. So in
let's do
that
that.
situation,
Let's
yes,
pay the
you are
bill.
going to have a change in foreign exchange. And there's going to be probably if it was 50 cents and we pay it now in today's, you're going to have a loss, right? A currency
Yes,
exchange loss.
save and close. So
Because if
we're
it's
paying.
78 now and it was 50 then, yeah, you're going to
Mhm.
have a loss.
So we're gonna pay this now, and let's take a look at and see if that actually changed our report. There it is. So there, yeah. So now we have an exchange gain or loss of
Which is a
20
loss. That's a loss.
$23,
Yeah.
which is
Because
yes,
the current exchange rate is 73 or 73 point whatever cents on the
right.
dollar, and we had it at 50. So of course that's going to be a difference of 23 something something I can't even read. It's too small for me,
Oh,
it's too small print. But that would make sense because now, and the reason that Dan, if you had the actual exchange rate on March 1st, which was 74 cents, and let's say now it's 73.5, it's probably even now it might not even show a penny. It may still be
yeah,
so inconsequential that it might not show one if you actually paid the bill today. So that's why it was important that you change that to a bigger difference.
bigger. Yes. So that's what the whole purpose of the multi-currency in general is designed to do, is to one is to allow you to send and receive transactions in a foreign currency, so that your foreign vendors or customers see it in a monetary language that they would recognize, and then they just pay it based off of their own dollar, or their own currency, whatever that happens to be. And then QuickBooks will then keep track of the exchange rate during that time period, or all of those transactions, and show you on your profit and loss what your gain or loss of that particular of dealings in those foreign currencies due to the fluctuations of exchange rates during
Yes.
those time periods.
And also,
Phew.
the same works on the income side too.
Right.
So if you send an invoice and they don't pay that until months later, and there were wild variations on the US versus euro or something like that, and they pay it, and let's say the euro has gone up, over there, and they pay it, then we're even going to get less US dollars from it,
Right.
unfortunately.
Right. So that's something that you want to keep in mind, right? So, on your profit and loss, you'll have this checkbox to show the unrealized gain or loss. Whether did I turn it? Yes, I
Yeah, it
did
was
turn it off.
checked and then you unchecked
Okay,
it.
so now that I have unchecked it, so the unrealized is only those. It should be, um, what I would expect it to see is those things that are unpaid during that time period, but based off of today's rates, what would be your unrealized gain or loss, um, based off of if
Yeah,
somebody were to pay it that day? But
my understanding was that that would only show when you run it on a cash basis, but I'm
right,
just thinking of having just taken the QuickBooks Advanced recertification on June 30th, which was the very last day that it was available. I cut it very, very close. I just recently was looking at a lot of, the updates and stuff. And I think I feel like I came across something like that. Now, you know who is an expert in multi-currency is Esther Friedberg Karp. Do you know
right,
Esther? So
yes,
this is her specialty. And she is somebody who's very, very knowledgeable. So I'm giving her a shout out right now. She knows every single thing about foreign currency exchange.
right. But that's the main goal of the multi-currency function inside of QuickBooks. Now, next week we're going to talk about how these foreign currencies could potentially be on a PayPal or Shopify transaction, and we'll take a look at some of the subtle nuances of
Yeah.
of that, when it comes to how PayPal can handle some of these foreign currency
Yeah.
issues
And
and transactions.
we had kind of looked at a statement where there were holding funds in foreign currencies. And the one thing I do want to say about that before we move on to that next week is that you have to turn that on. That's not just going to happen in PayPal.
Mhm.
It's if you enable to accept foreign currency in PayPal, then you can. But my understanding is that it's not just going to do it without you giving permission to do it. That's something that maybe I'll look up to verify 100%. But so that's different than accepting payments just with PayPal, like through Shopify or something like that.
Right,
It's not the same as accepting foreign currency in Shopify through Shopify payments. It's
right,
when you have enabled accept payments through PayPal, and then it kind of takes you to the little PayPal payment processing widget. And if you've enabled that to accept that for your clients, then it sends then you're collecting a whole um, you know, different foreign currency amount that's going to show on your PayPal statement. So that's when it gets really, really complex. But my understanding is that yes, you're in charge of all that. It's not like it can just do it without you knowing.
right. And so that's kind of like and we'll talk a little, and I'll have some examples of foreign currency transactions natively in Shopify, as well as those that were paid through PayPal, and we'll kind of unpack all that, because one thing that I was I was trying to find, if anyone had already created something out there, and mostly what I see that's out there is um, the expense side of things, right? Like when you're
Mhm.
paying for expenses in a foreign currency. How do you track that? But we're really concerned with the income or the revenue side of things, and that's not out there. So we want to make sure
Yeah.
that people are aware and available of what these nuances might happen to be. But we wanted to lay out the frustration, the foundation, which I think is probably the same meaning here with regarding multi-currency. It can certainly get a little frustrating when it comes to what am I actually doing inside of QuickBooks.
Yeah.
And there may be a case, right, of actually needing to have this turned on. And if you do turn it on, just bear in mind that it's something that you can't turn off. But as you mentioned earlier, if you're not using it, no harm, no foul, right?
Yeah,
So,
and like, and if and it where it really boils down to is if you are a small business or you're an accountant or a bookkeeper working with a small business, it's basically saying, "Hey, I have some, I want to do business with this foreign entity. Can they send me an invoice in euro or can they send it to me in the Australian dollar?" Or whatever. And so I have clients that accept payments from all over the world because we're e-commerce, and I'm
mhm,
starting to get into a lot of foreign companies again because I work in e-commerce, and so a lot of foreign entities are selling in the US, and I'm getting into a lot of that right now. And right now we're doing one in Colombia, um, so we're dealing with pesos. But basically, yes, you can tell your client, I can accept an invoice. It doesn't matter the currency or where they're physically located. Send it to me. I can make sure it goes into QuickBooks and I can pay you. To me, it looks like I'm paying you in US dollar. You're going to receive it in your home currency. That's it. Like it's
mhm.
actually quite easy.
Yep. And you'll be able to see the exchange rate on the register. You'll be able to see those all the mathings
Yeah, and
that's
honestly, like,
necessary for that.
I love this feature because you're basically taking the ability just from using the software, you're basically taking your firm from, US only to, now you can essentially deal, especially if you're a service related business. I'm not even gonna get into items. Like, let's not even talk about that. But if you're, service related business and, let's say you're a developer or something like that, a web developer, and you're working
Mhm.
all over the world. You can send those invoices out of QuickBooks,
Yeah.
absolutely no problem.
Yeah, and it's turning into a global
Yeah,
economy. People all over the place. You want to be able to track and account for the different currencies and whatnot. So you want to
yeah,
make sure that that's kind of accurate
yeah.
inside of
And
your
another thing
book.
is, like, come in contact with people all the time that are like, oh yeah, because I'm dealing with foreign entities, I'm doing it through Stripe or I'm doing it through PayPal. I'm sending them an invoice through Stripe because they don't know you can do it in QuickBooks Online, and it's preferred for me.
Yeah. All right. So we will unpack a little bit more subtle nuances in Shopify and PayPal next week. But I wanted to lay out the foundation of what the feature does inside of QuickBooks Online, so that people were aware of that. And so we will see you next week on the Workshop Wednesday.